Okay, just as another aside, so you notice this is voucher and adjustment entry. If I pick a different integration, I've got a sales order object here, and notice that it is the screen number is 40100. And if I come into here, if I go to orders, I go to order management, and I take a look at my sales order entry, you'll see that screen ID comes up. So there that is. And then also the objects on there. So you got your customer ID and your ship via and your salesperson ID. All of those are fields that are passed in here, and they may come in under, if I pull up a transaction here, they may actually be under another tab. And quite often when they're under another tab, like if we get into these sales tax or miscellaneous charges, you may get into even more levels. You'll notice that the levels on this are just 0 and 1, but you can actually go to more levels. So the point is that we've been able to, with the integration builder, we've been able to allow people to use the power of the object model without having to code, because normally what you would have to do is you would have to write code in order to use this. All right. We put a lot of effort into making sure that the integrations will run and be successful. And in the stored procedure that supplies data, it's very standard that we will validate a customer ID, a vendor ID, a terms code to make sure that all of those are really in Dynamics SL. So we actually perform validations in here so that by time it comes to the integration builder, we know that that's going to be successful. So here you see a vendor ID. And again, if you looked at the properties screen in Customization Manager, you would actually call that up. Okay, I'm also going to show our product navigator just briefly to give you an idea of how a process can be managed inside of using Integration Builder and looking at validations against data. So I'm going to give a brief example of how we can use Navigator to actually manage a process of integration. Here I've got a menuing system that I've set up, and under here I've got AP remote voucher entry, and this menu system essentially can be customized by role, by department. It's very flexible for creating processes and procedures that are very specific to departments. So I can come down here to the accounting, to the AP integration, and this is an example where I can show someone who goes out to, step one is go out to an American Express site and hit their FTP site and download a file. With Navigator, we can actually run a stored procedure that could read that file from an XML or another text file, and the stored procedure from SQL Server, actually we can call it from Navigator to load the data into a table. We can then take a look at the pre-integration view to find out what data is about to be integrated, so I can see that particular data. If your data comes from a third-party system that you had built, we've got these workflow items out here. If you wanted to click on this item and go back to another system and launch an application against that, you can actually do that to go fix the data, change some numbers, whatever, in the native application that it was created in. If there are exceptions to the data, if there are problems, like here we've got some totaling errors and things. This is an example where I could go back and I could actually view an accounts payable invoice to call that up. Now, in this case, it just happens that this is calling a product that we have called FlexForm, and in this case, it shows an example of voucher and adjustment entry that can be done completely outside of Dynamics SL or Dynamics GP, where I can have an invoice header, I can do lookups of vendors, and this is actually going to go directly against either any Dynamics GP, SL, NavAX systems to look up vendors. I can pick invoice details, pull from the chart of accounts. So there's a little bit of an aside from the whole integration process, but we actually use this as a data entry source to allow people outside of Dynamics to process transactions, and then allow Integration Builder to read directly from that. So I'll just close that. But again, these data views in Navigator give you the ability to see the data you are about to process, or we typically recommend look at exceptions to the data. Now, if you needed to go in and clean up some data besides our flex form component, or if you had some mapping tables, another component that we have inside of Navigator is called data maintenance form, and this actually allows you to do data entry directly into a table. So if that Amex data had come in and you needed to go in and clean it up, this gives users somewhere to go in and do some quick maintenance on that. This one happens to list the stored procedure that we're going to use to load the AP, and then we would simply launch the integration builder from here. So the idea behind these steps in Navigator is to give someone a process and make it very easy to follow, because normally this is a fairly disjointed set of steps that would go on. Now, this assumes that this is a bit of a batch process and that people are going to have to go out and grab data and bring it down. But again, it gives them a process to follow, very easy to process to follow. I've got our integration builder users guide right here. You can also have a log. We log errors and successfully processed transactions, and we actually show you each of the steps that's going on, so you can see that while it was setting a customer ID to the value C315, we had a problem with that. If we put the validations in against customers, you really should never get this. We're providing this as an example of showing you how our error logging goes. The object model in Dynamics SL and the error logging, well, there is no error logging, and their error trapping is a little bit suspect. It's a known thing even within the support community. So we wanted to build our own error logging to provide better information on what's going on when an integration is run into Dynamics SL. And here's an example of another folder that would just include other views. So the idea behind these items is to give you the ability to make it easy to follow. Further, you can go in and you can actually schedule items. So if you want something to be done at a specific time, this would give people guidance. It does not execute those, but it gives people guidance on what they should be doing and when. And you can actually document your work directly in here. So you'll notice that I can put a description of steps that I want to take. So under my AP integration, someone could come in and get a bird's eye view of that. They could, even if they would like, they can open folders in here or navigate directly to a specific object or item.